News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
And I'm Allan Gilbreth of darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian. I'm going to just leave it there.
Yeah, he's trying to always come up with a little snappy retort there to throw us off balance.
I refuse to say I'm behind the glass every day.
Okay, well, I can understand that.
Well, we did let you out finally.
It's kind of like being in prison. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we also encourage you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. Give us a like. Check out all the action over there, including, links to our past shows. A lot of cool videos, and the content is stacking up there, Allan, for our great moments in building history.
It is.
We've been posting videos. We post pictures about that. It is really becoming just about my favorite topic on the show, Allan, I have to admit. Because the conversation goes in all sorts of unexpected directions,
Well, so did those building projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, Max is bringing us a great moments in building history today. Get this, Allan. The oldest wooden structure in the world. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, Max. What is it called?
Horyuji.
Horyuji, the pagoda.
I'd say we're going to Japan.
This thing's 1,300 years old. How would you like to, Allan, when I go build a deck or something for somebody, I stand behind my work. I don't know that I could guarantee the thing's going to be there 1,300 years from now. But
a lot depends on how well it has been taken care of.
Yeah, and design, obviously. So we're going to unpack that. I would say this does qualify as a great moment in building history. Let me ask you this. From drought to flash flood, that's pretty much been the situation. Heat wave, drought, and then all of a sudden we get pounded with rain here. Yep. Our trees were not happy. Our neighbor's tree wasn't happy. It knocked our power out, Allan, last week. So we'll talk about that because, Allan, you revealed something to me in our exhaustive show prep about it. It's not just about what we see on the outside going on with the trees. There's a lot going on the inside, which I think we're going to unpack that a little. I feel like it behooves us to do that. So, Allan, you have got your own. We're calling this a shout out, but I really think this might be the wave of the future. All about efficient building techniques.
It's all about project management.
Yeah,
yes, indeed.
This is something interesting. Some contractors in Pittsburgh really pulled off a feat. I mean, they did something in 6 months that really probably would normally take a couple of years.
Right. Just
and
basically
they did it.
Was impossible. Right.
Yeah, we have our must-have item of the week. We've got a lot of other things. And, of course, we always encourage you to call or text or get in touch with us in some way during the show. And, again, you can get in touch with us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. So it's all coming at you today on Tool Talk Radio. But before we get to any of that.
And now, Tool Talk Radio's weekly salute.
All right, Allan, as I indicated, this is going to be an epic salute today.
I brought food.
I'm topics, ready. Not necessarily my commentary. Some things are more transparent than others. One of the greatest features of our planet is the simple fact that it has a transparent atmosphere. Much better than being on, Venus or something.
That's your opinion.
Hey, if you're doing an exterior woodworking project, you may want to give the wood a deeper color. You may want to finish it with a semi-transparent stain. It gives you that extra kick. Max, the producer's emotional health coach, advised him to be more transparent with his emotions, which is why Max can often be found banging his head against the control room wall during commercial breaks each Saturday during the hours of 8 to 10 a.m. every Saturday morning. I mean,
you left out noon to 1.
Okay, well, anyway. And, of course, on one noteworthy occasion, when Allan Gilbreth had set up his food truck at a Flat Earth convention, looking to sell his signature minimalist thin crust, which he was advertising for the occasion as the flattest pizza on the globe.
Yep.
Well, that's a very passive-aggressive comment, Allan. He was hoping for a weekend of strong sales. Unfortunately, however, once the attendees learned that Allan was not a true believer and that he had, in fact, been less than transparent with his own scientific opinions just to sell some pizza, the angry mob surrounded the truck and began pounding on the sides, all while chanting, "Flatten him." Okay,
good times. Good times.
Thankfully, however, Allan's vehicle was equipped to handle situations like this. So with a sigh at the thought of all the sales that might have been, Allan activated the hood-mounted water cannons, blasting the throng of miscreants out of his way, and drove disappointedly home. I mean, I will say, Allan, you had the right business model.
Well,
You just got to keep your mouth shut. Don't let people know,
well, you know.
Anyway, yes, transparency always adds an interesting dimension, and this especially holds true when it comes to our building materials. Tens of centuries ago, our ancestors developed a novel means to make a material transparent, a material so appealing to our construction that today virtually every person in the modern world interacts with it in some form or fashion every single day. My friends, we give you glass. Allan, am I correct in that? We do make a material, because, I left the scientific research to you, but when I said we had an epic salute, it's the topic, obviously. Glass, I mean, try to avoid glass. I mean, glass is everywhere, and it is a revolutionary material, right?
Well, there are a few materials in human history that we actually consider the game changers.
Oh, yeah.
Probably
yeah.
the top one of those is gold.
Yeah, okay.
Gold has influenced almost every aspect of human history since we figured out it was gold.
It's interesting that I don't want to get it on a thing about gold, but it's interesting how long we've been fascinated with gold and how
from the beginning,
right?
Yeah. Copper is another big one in there. We finally wander down, and suddenly we get to glass, and gold was naturally occurring. Copper was naturally occurring. Of course, any of the foods and things and wonderful stuff about the world was all naturally occurring. Glass is suddenly something that sort of exists without us, but not really.
Well,
and even then, we were still using obsidian or volcanic glass.
Well, let me ask you this, Allan. This is the way I look at it. Okay, for example, somebody, centuries and millennia ago looked up and they saw a bird flying, and it said, what would it take to get us to be able to fly? Or
right.
So you see something that triggers a bigger idea. Well, we have, like you said, we have diamonds. We have other materials that are transparent. But then it's like, what if you could make something really like a big window, or and then how do you manipulate materials to make that happen?
That actually wasn't the first thought.
Okay.
The first thought was, that is really cool looking. I need more bling.
So what is this, The Hobbit? Because I mean that was the whole problem in that book, right?
Well,
I mean,
basically all really early glass is colored glass.
I wouldn't doubt that.
And even when we find glass in the tombs, it's not clear, it's colored. And so it was clear glass came much, 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 much later in glass's history.
Right.
Now we think of clear glass as just how does society survive without it? But the artisans throughout history have been, how can we make this stuff look cooler?
Okay, I got you. So, well, it works together, I guess, because
let's just start with originally glass is kind of an offshoot of the discovery of metal.
Oh, okay.
And copper, if you found the right copper vein, you could actually take a big enough rock and beat the copper out of the rock and have metal.
Right. Okay. You're shedding the
metal. Right.
You're shedding the
right. You find a metal, and then we're kind of like, but wait, isn't there more copper in the rocks? Mm-hmm. So then we started looking for ways of heating and extracting the metals. Well, through metallurgy, we began building forges.
Right.
And once somebody now see, here's the thing: in a lot of forges, even to this day, we use sand as a base to keep other things from melting or catching on fire.
Well, that's where I was going. Yeah, because that's where.
Well, here we go.
From.
The
right.
silica in the sand, somebody finally got a forge so hot.
Right.
They looked over and went, Joe, look, the sand is melting.
Right.
And the end result was this hard, malleable material that, let's face it, we got a lot of raw material to play with.
How many? Okay, Allan, it's funny because you and I have been doing these salutes for a while, and the smoke detector came from a totally different invention. Like, they weren't even going for it. The smoke detector was a total accident. Wasn't Teflon There's like all these ones where they weren't even looking for that.
Side effects.
Right. So this
Lots
is a
of
side effects discovery,
Well,
right?
you do have now, you got to go back to obsidian. And obsidian is a naturally created glass out of volcanoes.
Right.
And a shard of obsidian is actually still sharper than a razor.
Oh,
So
yeah.
obsidian spear points and obsidian arrow points and obsidian meat skinners. So we've been using a type of glass from like the mastodon times.
Well, I'm wondering, like the first people that started melting glass, like you wonder did they even consider the notion that, hey, this could be a good thing to put in our window? You know,
This actually
I just wonder what the first.
they didn't. They
Right, 'cause
didn't.
you
The
wouldn't think
very
that way.
first thing we found, Bronze Age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are talking way back at the very beginning of metal. Was glass
Tell us
beads.
when the Bronze Age was, because that's 2000 BC or something.
Yeah, and a little further back.
It's pretty far back,
Different
yeah.
parts of the world. As soon as they discovered basic metallurgy, we're considered the Bronze Age.
Okay.
And one of the first things we began finding was glass beads.
Where were they finding this? Were they just from the?
Just around these forge sites, and then later they were. If you were rich or you were royalty, you had some kind of glass
Okay.
to go with your gold, your silver, your other items of value. One of the major items of value was anything of glass, because right after they discovered glass, they discovered that whatever you had for an impurity in the glass also made it a color.
Right, because that's how they get stained glass, right? Yeah.
Bingo.
Okay.
And it's just one of those things that began to kind of spread really fast, because once one guy figured it out, then the next one comes along and goes, well, I got all this, basically ash left over from a fire.
Mm-hmm.
So I put some ash in it, and it lowered the melting point and became easier to work with.
Right.
And the next guy comes along, and today we understand the chemistry behind all that.
Sure, because I'm sure there's all sorts of different additives and things to make glass stronger, to make it UV resistant, all that stuff.
You added a little clay to it, and the glass turned yellow. You added a little of this bauxite stuff to it, and it turned other colors. So ancient glass makers suddenly began with just the simplest things: beads, pieces of stuff, things that might have been accidentally created in the forge.
Right. Okay.
The next leap is somebody goes, that stuff is really gooey. I bet if we stuck some bamboo in it, we could shape it.
Oh.
And the next thing you knew, metallurgy gave us the ability to have a metal pipe. The forge gave us the ability to get molten glass. And now we explode through history with artisan glass.
You're talking about glass blowing.
Now we have vessels. Now we have cups. Now we have storage. Because this is also happening at the same time. We're having the same explosion in ceramics.
Okay, when would this have been? Because, Allan, in these notes, there's so much just different eras, like you said. Revolution. It seems like they still weren't thinking about window. Nobody, which is the main thing we think of.
We haven't thought about a window yet.
Yeah.
We're talking like 1600, maybe 1200 BCE.
Yeah, it goes. It's
way
amazing
back.
how far back it goes.
We are way back.
Right.
And just when this exploded, honestly, there were wars fought over who owned the glass makers.
Oh, yeah, because isn't that a thing? Artisans and everything, even up to Mozart and stuff, that was considered a commodity by rich people. Like, you had your own stable of glass makers and artisans and everything. Yeah.
And, and then, of course, not all of it. And the thing is, this kind of happens in kind of an explosion, because it shows up in the early Bronze Age, and by the late Bronze Age, as we're getting closer and closer to the religious times, things show up like artisan blue glass in Egypt.
Right.
And these are in the tombs. I mean, these are part of the sarcophagi and stuff. That's how valuable this was.
Can I just say one thing, though, Allan, because something caught my attention. I looked at it, said, I want to say it was like 1500 BC or something. They said the Roman Egyptians, which I'm like, okay, is that the Egyptians that were conquered by Rome, or is it a
just
blending?
say Cleopatra.
Okay,
Yeah.
Cleopatra. They said they may have made the first glass window. Like and maybe it was just a decorative thing. Like
Well,
they.
How
is that,
did you
think
see?
that's
How
accurate?
did you see out of the carriage?
Okay. Do you think they put glass in a carriage like
Well,
that?
where else would you? Where you got to think this like security.
Because to me,
I
it's
need
not
to
real
be able
secure.
to see. Well,
Okay. You throw a rock through it. You know,
well, but hang on.
okay.
If you got to get close enough to throw a rock through it.
Okay.
So if you're in one of these kits, one of these carriages, and you're being transported, how do you see what's going on in the world around you?
Well, and that's true. They didn't say how thick this glass. It could have been a half an inch thick, and then it's pretty darn
it's
strong,
pretty
so
muddy and pretty sturdy.
pretty
but
heavy
you know what?
for
It
those
let light
bears
in.
to carry too.
Right.
Yeah.
It let light in.
Right.
But then you have a sudden shift. The minute we began looking at glass as something that conveyed light, not just conveyed color,
Yeah.
glass weighs a whole lot less than stone.
I know where you're going with this. Okay.
So let's get out of the dark ages and let's go straight into the Renaissance where glass becomes art at its highest and finest form.
Sure. Yeah. Stained glass, those massive
my
cathedrals. And
gosh.
when you see the building of these cathedrals, too, it's amazing. Something, 1,500 years ago, or whenever this, when are we talking here? About the 1200s or
Yeah.
something? That these things are like as tall as a 5-story building, and the windows themselves are as big as like a 3-story house.
The window made the building possible.
I know what you mean. Tell us what you mean
The
by
building
that.
was
Yeah.
too heavy. You
Right.
can only pile so much rock so high before it crushes under its own weight.
Right.
By now having these beautiful, vaulted, gorgeous windows, using modern construction techniques to distribute weight, suddenly the building went from 2 stories to 4 stories.
Right.
Or as we've now seen today, far larger and far grander.
Right.
So glass, in a lot of ways, shaped pretty much everything we know about a modern world.
Well, the other thing to think about with glass, Alan, is the psychological benefits. Because imagine your house where you can't look out. Imagine just the sense of connecting you with the outdoors and getting sun. We know sun is essential for our well-being.
Right.
And it's hard to imagine a world without this. But somebody had to come up with it.
Well, and not only did somebody come up with it, but it seems like, especially in the topic of glass, the moment somebody thought of something, somebody came up with yet another interesting use.
Right.
Of when cars came along, glass was a perfect idea, but glass was dangerous because glass breaks. Mm-hmm. And glass, when it's broken, is really dangerous.
Sure. Yeah.
So now what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, some experiments with, and you talk about technological mistakes. For years, farmers had used a little light coating to put on their eggs to keep them from cracking going to market.
Oh, did they? Okay.
That was kind of the birth of safety glass.
Oh, I didn't know that.
By using
what do they coat it with?
Using polymer layers over the glass. The glass can still break, but when it breaks into something far less dangerous to human life.
Well, it holds. Yeah. Wait, I was talking about the eggs. What did they coat that
Well,
with?
that was
Not to get sidetracked, but it triggered me. Like, what is?
Well, they were using different kind of almost shellacs, basically shellac light,
I could see that.
and they would paint the edge of the egg. Well, then several people, and I'd have to actually look up who actually is the quote unquote inventor of safety glass.
Okay.
But welcome to, as we love to say, the collision of technologies.
Well, it's what's interesting, Alan, is back in the day. I mean, it wasn't. You and I can remember a world before cell phones.
Yes.
But even when they first made cell phones, would you ever imagine that glass would be such a major component of a portable phone? Because all it has to do is dial. You don't have to have, but suddenly glass is like the thing on our phone.
Well, I remember the very first fiber optic cable I ever saw.
Yes. Okay.
It's glass.
Well, because you can get it that fine, right? Yeah.
Fiberglass is glass. Fiberglass is spun glass.
That's another one of those afterthought. It's the remnants of something else. They were just I don't even remember what they were making, and then they wound up with fiberglass.
And all of these little thin filaments were blowing off of it in the air and there you go. Suddenly, here's yet another entire product category.
Well, if you've got any thoughts about, your warm feelings towards glass, or your thoughts, what would the world look like without glass? It's everywhere, and I dare say everybody interacts.
How
with
would the
glass
world
every
feel
day.
without glass?
Yeah, Max wouldn't be behind it.
No,
he'd be out here with us. So who wants that?
He'd be loose.
But yeah, get in touch with us, 901-683-0989. But Allan, I think we have a couple more parting thoughts to discuss
definitely.
about glass when we come back. But also, when you go from a drought to a flood, what are your trees thinking of that?
Wow.
Because we've been, I think, really all around the country, but especially here in the Mid-South, we're dealing with that. I dealt with it personally last week, so we're going to unpack that. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar, Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Now, this is the forklift. You need a license to operate this machine. That means the upstairs office workers can't drive it. Quiz, Mike, should you drive the forklift?
I can and I have.
No.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
I don't know, Allan. I think the world would be more interesting if they let office workers drive the forklift. Who knows what might occur?
Oh, I do. And it's not good. It's not good.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max behind the glass.
Or free from the glass for today.
Yeah.
Because we're talking glass.
Exactly. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We've been talking about glass. Maybe you'd want to weigh in. What are your thoughts about glass? What are your great glass moments? I will say, Allan, I have a few permanent scars from glass gone wrong, but
That just sounds like there's this episode of The Simpsons where it's like they're talking about like the origins of sand and like related to glass, and it's like, all right, that's the sand movie. It's like, how boring could you get?
Hey,
I think it was called Dune.
Hey.
But
dude, think of the glass you could make out of that
Oh,
planet,
man, that
Allan.
planet-
Spice riddled glass.
Awesome.
That's interesting.
Allan, I think maybe before we get out of this topic, though, we might talk about the future of glass. But I had a question because of the properties of glass. This is just, I don't know if this is even relevant, but I bet you'll make it relevant. When I was, I like to have soup in the winter or like chili or stew or something like that. Well, when I would heat it up in the, the dreaded microwave, I know you don't even own a microwave. Well, we won't go down that road. But they, when I heat it up in a glass bowl, the temperature drops pretty quick. Like it doesn't keep it warm for very long. Then I went to a store and they said you should use a ceramic bowl because they even had these special ceramic bowls that hold it. Well, my question was, how do you use that to, so a glass, you heat it up, but then apparently it can dissipate heat sort of quickly, I guess.
Because it has
So
a
you-
high thermal expansion rate.
Okay, because I feel like there's probably uses for that,
There
So
is.
I
All right,
told you,
well,
Max, it's like
Here we go. Allan gets all
low-hanging
excited.
fruit, yeah.
All right. Well, first off, you have to understand that glass is not a solid.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Glass is ice. It's a frozen. It's a frozen substance, and it's not a solid. And I can prove it.
Now you're hurting my brain.
Now, I can
it's
prove it.
ice. Okay, go ahead.
All right,
Yeah.
take a thin bottle,
Yeah.
put liquid in it. With just your hand, squeeze that bottle, and you will watch that liquid level raise.
Oh, come on, Allan. Even those old-fashioned like Coke bottles that are
Well,
an
you
eighth
need
of
a
an
thin.
inch thick.
You need not one of those big, heavy-duty, thick ones, but
That sounds like a recipe.
Okay.
Lawyers, don't come after us when somebody slices their hand
squeeze
open.
Gently, don't break it, but you get what's called a capillary action because glass still wiggles and moves. All right, glass, especially if you work with old buildings, if you measure the bottom of the pane versus the top of the pane, the bottom of the pane will be thicker because the
settles.
glass has slid down just a little bit.
Okay, I don't doubt that, Allan, because when I've replaced windows, I had to replace a 4-foot window. You can watch it bend.
Right. I say all that
Yeah.
because this is thermal expansion back and forth.
Okay.
So glass, you have to think of more as a frozen substance as opposed to a solid substance.
I got you.
So because glass really behaves in this odd way, of you get into how do we make glass thermally more stable.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah,
right.
because if you go to outer space or something, you need some stable glass.
Well, I
up
get
there.
to introduce you to Clovis and Leon Riget.
Okay.
And they decided to make glass out of something called borosilicate. All right, well, it's a silicate, it's a silica, but it was one of the ones that really doesn't react to heat very well. So here we go. They worked out in their factory how to begin making products out of glass that were very low thermally expansive. And back in 1915, the Corning Corporation bought all of their research and created Pyrex.
Corningware or Pyrex. Yeah. Gotcha.
Created Corningware.
Okay.
Exactly, because they were already making ceramic dishes to contain heat and bake and go in your new oven. So now a lot of the clear glass heavy-duty mixing bowls or measuring cups, they're all Pyrex.
I got a question for you, Alan. I know glass is obviously recyclable because that's
Yes.
one advantage. You can.
Yes.
Now I guess I'm always thinking of recycling plastic and everything, but with it being recyclable, I also have a question. Is glass technically biodegradable? I mean, it's sand. It's basically sand. What happens if you stick glass underground for 500 years?
Well, what will happen is, let's say you lost a piece of glass on the beach.
Okay.
And the action of the waves and other grits would eventually abrade the glass down to basically so small, tiny pieces it becomes sand itself.
Well, that's a pretty specific. What if you leave it on the ground?
Well, the ground is somewhat stable, so unless something comes along to abrade or move it, it's pretty much just going to lay there for a while.
Okay.
Which is why archaeologists get so excited when they find old pieces of pottery and
Sure.
glasswork,
Yeah.
because they have a tendency to hang around for a long time.
Well, I don't know,
So
man.
glass is pretty stable, but in 1915, this idea that glass could not shatter when you change temperatures on it really, really fast, and the automotive industry came up with a glass that didn't cut you up when it got broken.
Right, for your windshield. Yep.
Now we fast forward to today, and we walk around with glass all over us. You're wearing glasses.
Sure.
So you go back hundreds of years into the Renaissance to the invention of eyeglasses,
Right.
where the thickness of the glass and the shape of the glass improved human sight.
Yeah. Glasses.
Telescopes, binoculars. You know, we just launched the James Webb Space Telescope.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is the great grandchild of a couple of lenses and being able to look over the hill
Right.
to either see your cows or see your enemies approaching.
Yeah, I mean, there's really like you said, Alan, you could have your own podcast or your own radio show just about glass because there's so
Every
much
day.
uses.
Every
but we told you folks this was going to be an epic salute. But
you know, most of our data these days travels over glass.
yeah,
We have fiber optics, which is a far more stable system and far faster than anything we've ever had before.
yeah. Well, Alan, I feel like we probably got to move on, but we say glass. It's just interesting when you think of the ramifications, and I'm always fascinated with the snowball effect of one idea, one invention, one idea, and this is definitely, like you said, revolutionary and game changing. But hey, Alan, let's bring this back down, crashing down to earth.
Okay.
So here in the Mid-South, and really in many parts of the country, all across the country, we had, gosh, what did we have? Almost 2 months. I can't remember. It was sustained temperatures where the feel-like temperature was either close to 100 or over 100, sometimes well over 100.
Yes.
I think the highest we had was, 112 and no rain, literally
Honestly,
nothing.
yes, just
so we had
miserable
drought
heat.
and heat conditions. And one thing I will give you credit, Alan, you were telling us from the beginning, look, this is a situation, don't forget about your trees. You said the grass can take care of itself if it dies, but take care of your trees and water them.
Right.
Well, Alan, we had a situation at our house where one of our neighbor's trees had a limb. It wasn't even a huge limb, but it hit perfectly.
Right.
We had all this heat, and then over the last week we've had some really heavy rains, like serious, pounding rains, and it hit the branch. And as far as we can tell, the limb was probably dead from the drought, and then the rain soaked it, made it heavy, and then dropped it. So I was noticing around town, I was seeing trees that were just down. I was seeing limbs all over. So tell us what's cooking with our trees, and what do we do to, because it's not over, even though we've had a lot of rain, and now the farmers are probably happy with, getting some moisture in the soil. But what do we need to think about with our trees going forward here?
Well, let's start with the types of trees.
Okay.
And let's start with how to water a tree.
That's a good point.
Well, a lot of people think, a lot of people look at a tree and think, wow, those roots go down 40 feet. Mm-hmm. They don't.
I wouldn't have thought that, but
a lot of people kind of think a tree is a tree's kind of an upside down, right? Yeah. The roots actually fan out over a relatively shallow area.
Okay.
And some trees surface root and other trees don't. But I have always found that if you've got, especially an older mature tree, come out about 6 feet from it. And if you want to, you can even get a little crazy and go get you like a fence post pipe, drill holes in it, and you can kind of drive that into the ground, and now you can just stick your hose in it, and you get water down to that 2 or 3 foot level so that you're actually getting water down underneath the soil, getting in around the roots.
That's like a tree IV.
It is. Occasionally it is.
I never would have thought of that, but that's actually kind of that's like the turbo technique. That gets it right to the root.
Gets it right down there. And the reason I say it like that is because how many people have had to have their plumbing redone because that big old oak tree got into their drain pipes?
Good point, yeah.
Because
they need their water.
Trees are moisture seeking
all
the time. Now, the reason your cute little flowers won't grow in that lovely little bed you put around the base of that tree is the tree ate all the good stuff.
Yeah.
That tree absorbs a lot of nutrients and a lot of water.
Right.
So unless you separate the worlds, that tree is going to suck down anything that you put around it.
So if you wanted to look at tree, because you told me something else. You said depending on where they're at, it's possible that the tree roots intersect with other. I mean,
they
obviously, if
there's
trees that are 20 feet apart, their roots are gonna touch.
Yep.
So what is going on? Is that underground combat where it's like, that's my nutrient, give me that? Or do they have a means of kind of sharing and distributing, or what's going on underground?
Weirdly, the answer is yes.
Okay, both ways. Do we have benevolent trees?
We actually have trees that...
I want to see evil trees.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about. Who's the most evil tree out there?
That would be the strangler fig.
Okay.
I know who the most evil tree is. Of any tree that wraps around another tree and strangles it to death is an evil tree.
Well,
that's my kind of tree.
Is kudzu an evil?
Well, a kudzu is just a vine that doesn't know when to say no.
Yeah,
vine, kudzu
it's a very eager
18
vine.
inches. Yeah, 18 inches a day is a bit much. You can actually watch it grow. But trees do set up a network.
Okay.
And as you and I were kind of talking, it's kind of almost an Avatar the movie type thing.
Right.
Where the funguses and the mushrooms and the bacteria and all create an environment that produces the materials that trees use as nutrients.
Right.
And a recent study found if you fed the big oak tree in the middle a certain nutrient that you could track, you go back a few months later and you begin finding traces of that nutrient in the other trees kind of in its network.
Now that's interesting.
So they're kind of, there's a certain amount of sharing going on.
Okay.
And Joe just jumped straight out of his chair.
Well, the light bulb went off, Allan. You are making me think of something, and this is probably worth mentioning because I've observed. I can tell you this. We have a really big backyard, as I've told you, and you've been in my backyard. Yep. And when I look at even though to me these are man-made artificial things, you put up a fence, you put up a property line or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, we treat our yard one way. I'm not going to pretend I'm like the best landscaper around,
you're not,
whatever.
But it's okay.
Okay, but I'm just saying. I treat my lawn one way. My next door neighbor treats their lawn the other way.
Right.
Okay, because I've always wondered I would think the trees would be sort of uniform no matter what they are, but man, you go from yard to yard, and the properties of their trees and bushes may be different, probably depending on what fertilizer they're throwing down. And and all of that. So, man,
What type of weed treatments are going in, how much privet is around the area, because privet is a absolute nutrition thief.
oh, is it? Yeah.
Privet bushes
They eat up all the.
they're like the locusts of the plant world.
I got you.
They really just, oh my gosh, privet and I have a hate relationship for decades.
right.
So to get specific, we say all of this to get back to the tree, and then I'm going to throw in winter. Because
Okay.
every winter, this past winter, we had an ice storm.
Sure. Yeah.
And what happens is a lot of weight gets on these limbs. Now, some trees, like younger pine trees, are very resilient.
Although I saw a lot of down limbs, but the tree itself survived.
But
yeah.
you know, the tree itself can bend and dip.
Yeah.
And if it's got to sacrifice a limb, it's going to let it go. And
Okay.
if that limb twists and breaks, it goes. Now, on your bigger, harder wood trees, something more insidious happens.
Okay.
And this is something that's going to become very apparent as the leaves begin to drop in October.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a lot of deadfall in these trees. What I mean by that is
Yeah.
of a big branch up in the tree back in the winter got covered in ice. And the weight brought it down, and it got so heavy that it began to splinter the wood.
Right.
Now, as that limb came down and it turned or twisted, all of the bark layer back up by where the break is got damaged.
Yeah.
Now, as we have learned from every tree-eating beetle, beaver, and every other critter on the planet, all the good stuff in a tree is in the first 1 inch. The bark layer and the fluid layer is all right there together.
Yeah. That's where all the action's happening.
That's
right?
where all the good stuff is.
Yeah.
That's why the cartoons get trees growing wrong. Every cartoon.
What do you mean?
Because every cartoon says a tree grows up from the roots.
Oh, gotcha.
No, it doesn't. Because if you and your wife, when you first moved in, had carved your little heart and your initials into a tree 4 feet up off the ground, that carving would still be 4 feet up off the
So
ground.
it's growing out.
The
And-
tree
yeah.
grows out and grows out from the very ends.
Right.
Because of that, where that damage happened, then the tree is going to repair itself where it can reach. And it's not going to make an attempt to save that limb.
See, this is what was fascinating because I was talking to Allan last night, and he gave me what I would call a revelation about it. It was almost like I hate to say it, I pictured it like, you remember that story about the guy that was hiking and he got stuck. And he had to cut off his own hand.
Yes.
To survive. It kind of reminded me of that because you said the trees are like, okay, this limb is damaged. I'm done feeding it nutrients. I'm focusing on. So you're saying the tree itself. Not only when that ice damaged it, it's just like it's making its own decision to cut off the nutrients. So
A tree in nature is like utilitarianism in nature in action.
it sounds like I didn't know trees did. I thought they would just keep pumping the nutrients to whatever veins are there. And
Well,
but
that's just it. That area is now damaged.
So it's written it off. It's
That's
like, see ya.
been
We're-
torn or whatever. So if that area has separated, so Joe, you basically now have a limb that might be hanging by the core wood
right.
that's snapped and broken and twisted, but it's really begun to decay and it's going to fall.
Yeah.
Do vines follow a similar concept where it's like, hey, I don't see any promise in you. I'm a offshoot of vine and everything. I'm going to stop feeding you these nutrients and just, let you die.
That occasionally happens. All right, well, if you've ever had a vineyard, angling your vineyard so that you get the most amount of sun evenly is very, very important, or you're going to get very lopsided vineyards. You're going to huge growth on one side, almost no growth on the other. So vines aren't so much about sacrificing as they are as going, I can reach over here, and that's kind of dark. I don't like it over here, so I'm going to put all my effort over here where I'm getting the best light and the best water and the best nutrients. So vines, if you actually watch like a slow motion speed up of them, are shockingly amazing. They look like little cowboys throwing little lariats out trying to grab things. And as a matter of fact, it's vine growth is where we got the idea for a spring. Because
That
if
makes
you'll
sense.
notice,
I know those
they
coils.
they coil up.
Yeah.
So they got a lot of give when the wind blows and all that.
Right.
The tree doesn't get that option. So I'm thinking, all right, so Joe, here you are. You're parked in your driveway. You got this big, beautiful tree over you. Guess what? There's a 300-pound limb up there waiting to say hello to your new BMW.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
This is why, we get into arborists and people are kind of like, why do you have to have your tree trimmed and why do you want people to look at that stuff?
I no longer say that, Alan, because I was one of those people.
How many
so you
times
have
have
half
you been
of a
without
tree
lights?
fall on your house. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But, yeah.
So it becomes very, very important now as we're getting past this drought, because when it gets really hard, you got a lot of trees that already turn brown.
Yeah.
Because they went, all right, you know what? We ain't got enough to support you, leaves, hit the road.
Well, Alan, what I've
they
noticed
began
around...
hibernating back, withdrawing nutrients to the trunk and to the roots.
Okay.
So once the little branch hits the ground, it literally hits the bricks, and ideally not the bricks to your house.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Alan, what I've noticed around town, because I am paying more attention to this really ever since some of these ice storms. I never thought about trees till I moved to Memphis, honestly. But so I'm noticing things where I might be looking at a bush or a tree or something, and it looks normal, but then over here on the side, there's just this one chunk where everything's just yellow.
Yes.
And everything, so that's from this drought. It's probably the result of what you're saying. So it seems to me if you're studying your trees right now, I know it might be harder to see up there because of all the leaves in the way, but you probably need to be looking at the intersection of where the limbs start, right? I mean, and get ahead of it. We just don't want another winter of all these trees and limbs falling.
Trust me, neither does the power company.
Right. We don't need a repeat of the last one. So
there's so many different factors here, but pruning is not a bad thing, and getting some of this deadfall out of there is definitely a good thing. They're not called widow makers for no reason.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because you get some of these limbs, and as you just said, we went without a lot of rain for a long time, so the trees withdrew their nutrients and kind of bided their time. Everybody kind of held on.
Yeah.
And now we got a little rain, so suddenly, we're not quite at the end of the season, but, so there's still going to be some good leaf growth. And if you've got fruit trees or something like that, and they haven't dropped their fruit yet, they're probably going to make what they got on them.
Alan, before we hit the break, just real nuts and bolts, though. You did give us that tip about basically a tree IV. Well, what if you don't want to go that route? How long, okay, let's just suppose you have an average size tree. Maybe it's, 50 feet tall or something.
Right.
How long do you need to water it for? And what do? Can you just put a sprinkler there? Do you put a hose directly?
The idea is slowly over time.
So distribute it. Maybe a sprinkler's good.
Yeah, a sprinkler is set very light.
Okay.
Or there's now misting sprinklers, and there's now soak hoses, which will just drop a little bit of water at a time. So what you want to do is you don't want to saturate the water and have it run off. What you want to do is put water down very slowly over a period of time,
Let it
so you
absorb.
get some penetration.
For how long? That's what because I'm trying to figure out, if we get another drought, I want to know how to do this. So.
If you gave a tree a nice 30-minute drink every other day,
that's
your
it?
tree's probably going to do just fine.
All right. Well, we were going a couple hours with this thing.
That's
so
perfectly fine. Your tree loved you.
Okay.
I'm a little stingier than you are.
I think we're going to be weighing in on this as we go, Alan, because we want to stay ahead of, especially after the way things went with the last ice storm. We don't
want all this deadfall coming.
We don't
out.
want a repeat of this, So, but it's this is important information, Alan. So, and you're giving me all sorts of insight about the psychology of trees. If there's such a thing. I don't know, man.
We love our trees. We are blessed in this city to have beautiful, beautiful greenery.
Absolutely. Well, Alan, hour one of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but I can't wait to get to hour two. We're going to hit another one of our great moments in building history, talking about the oldest wooden structure in the world. You've got a shout out to efficiency and our must-have item of the week. It's going to be really good. This is Tool Talk Radio. We'll be right back.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome to hour two of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com. You can call or text us at and our buddy Max behind the glass. Sorry, Max.
You probably couldn't recognize me because of the fact that I was outside of the glass today.
Yeah. He's throwing us off.
Today's theme is glass, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And you can also go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, give us a like, check out all the action over there, including the must-have item of the week. Which, Alan, we're going to shake things up a little. Well, we're not shaking it. We're just rearranging, basically, because I know what happens, especially with, upcoming momentarily, we're going to get to our great moments in building history. And this week, it's one of Max's offerings. It's the world's oldest wooden structure. It's 1,300 years old and counting. This thing looks great. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be here probably for another 1,300 years. So when we get into that discussion, I know it's going to take off. So we're going to, what we want to do first, Alan, because we don't want to forget to do this, we're going to get to our must-have item of the week.
Okay, I'm ready.
Max, hit the, there we go. I was waiting. I thought I just threw him the softball. Okay. Alan, this is pretty basic, and this made you laugh a little bit when I show you, but tell people what I'm holding up. Okay.
As Joe has entered the dark side of the battery world with a battery-powered utility light.
Is that what it? Okay, I'm just calling it a flashlight, but it's pretty cool, Alan. It's a battery-powered flashlight, rechargeable, I might add. I'm not throwing any batteries in the ground and polluting and everything like this. It was actually part of my introductory package from, what was that, a year or so ago? I finally succumbed and bought battery-powered. It was like a little starter kit. It had a saw. It had a great sawzall, 2 drills, a flashlight, and 2 batteries, and a charging port for like $140. It was. They really know how to rope you in, because you can't say no to that.
Because now you're going to buy about another $300 worth of batteries.
Right. So. What I like about this, Alan, is it's got a rotating lens. So basically, it's got a nice solid base. You put the battery in the bottom, and it forms a very well balanced. So if you're working inside of a cabinet or something, it's a very stable base. Well, suppose you're working in a cabinet and you're doing some plumbing. You want to point it up. Well, this lens rotates 90 degrees. You can point it to the side. You can point it at a 45. You can point it straight up, and it's very stable and lightweight. And as we say, you're recharging it, so you're not wasting batteries like you would with like a flashlight or something. And I love the rechargeable nature of things.
Yeah. Well, I'm also going to point out that is also an LED plate that could land a UFO.
It's pretty bright.
Definitely a lot brighter than the old, when we say flashlight, everybody has that old Scooby-Doo 1960s handheld flashlight idea. That is designed to get in with you wherever you're working, especially if you get under like a sink or something.
Oh, yeah.
That thing is going to light it up like daylight.
Now they just need to have it like magnetized to where you could just like stick it next to you.
I bet they have those, don't you think? And well, Alan, it's got a handle where you could actually hook it. I've hooked it over things like pipes or sides of a, whatever cabinet. And so it's really great. And honestly, it looks, I don't think I'm ever going to have to change the bulb in there. It doesn't even look like a bulb. It looks like a little square.
Right.
It's tiny, and it's gotta. I gotta believe it's just more efficient. I can remember a day, Alan, buying batteries. You use the batteries up, you throw them out, or
worse, you left them in there and it ruined the flashlight.
Right. We're really getting to a point where I feel like just about everything's going to be rechargeable.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think it's something I'm proud to own. The reason you were laughing is because I've pretty much fully come over to the.
I knew you would eventually.
Yeah, I fought it, kicking and screaming, but I'm there. So anyway, that's our must-have item of the week.
And
pretty straightforward.
A great one indeed.
And like I said, if you want to see what this looks like, just go to our Facebook page, the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page, and check it out. So I bet you who has probably 50 of these things in their arsenal, or at least their technicians have several of these, because they got to get into some tight corners and they got to get to some unusual places to work. It's our good friends at Brown Refrigeration, right?
Oh, yes.
I mean, no question about it. So, I don't know. One day I'm going to get a transition I can be proud of. That was kind of lame, but whatever. And by calling attention to it, it just makes it even weaker. But
you're just human, Joe. You're just human.
Let's just shift gears. So we want to talk real quick about our buddy Larry Brown from Brown Refrigeration, because it's interesting. Right now, what I'm thinking about, Alan, okay, it's hot. we've had a little bit of a break from the heat. All I'm thinking about now is getting the humidity out of my house. Right now, I mean, because they deal with HVAC, they deal with air conditioning, and a lot of it is just the simple fact of dehumidifying and clearing out. So you really need your home to be working at peak efficiency.
A friend of mine called me yesterday and asked me when we had moved to the tropics.
The windows were sweating.
Oh,
is that what your house is doing too?
It was just. It was just amazing. I walked in a store and the entire front of the store was opaque.
Yeah.
With the amount of water droplets on the inside of the window.
That's what last night was like. You know what I wonder? This is a little bit of a tangent. I wonder if like the, because they work with Train Products.
Yes.
I wonder what the, if they have like a yearly convention and they get together, I wonder what the HVAC guys like in Phoenix have to say about like the HVAC guys out here in Memphis, because it's such a different climate and everything, and they deal with different, I don't know, it's just sort of a thought. But anyway, if you need any HVAC, this is terrible. If you need any HVAC needs, and if you need to keep your air clean with the clean air system, which is really becoming with the Remy Halo system,
oh my gosh,
it's almost becoming a necessity here, and especially today with dealing with things like the coronavirus and things like that. It blasts out clean air, but it also blasts out air that cleans, the cleaning particulates that come from the Remy Halo system. And really, you need your HVAC system maintained. It's not just a matter of, okay, well, it's broke, I need a new one. It's if you keep it regularly maintained, it really just pays for itself. It's one of those few things that it does pay for itself. You notice it immediately with your utility bills. So,
well, you also in how well you feel and how well your house smells, and your just general comfort.
And of course, like we say, the staff over there is outstanding.
Yes.
The whole culture at Brown Refrigeration it's top notch. They take care of. They answer their phones. Every technician, you're going to be proud to work with them. And of course, Mrs. Brown, she's a character, and you can manage all of their HVAC features on your the smart home system. There's an app for that, so there's no reason not to call. Just get in touch with the good people at Brown Refrigeration. You can call them directly at 901-362-1881. Go to their website, brownref.com, and go to their Facebook page. They actually have a pretty active Facebook page. All right, Allan, we've been waiting for this. Now Max is going to spearhead a discussion.
And now, great moments in building history.
I've noticed we're all kind of getting in on the act, right? Allan, you're going to probably be bringing us one soon enough, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, what do you got, Max? Tell us what your great moments in building history is going to point to today.
Today, our journey takes us to the southeast of Japan in a prefecture known as Nara.
Big surprise.
Well, of course, people know that I like Japanese culture, everything Japan. So today we're discussing a pagoda that is part of a larger complex called Horyuji, which means Temple of the Flourishing Law, because it's a Buddhist temple.
Right.
And pagodas serve a very important purpose in Buddhism in Japan. They are used as a means to house Buddhist relics. It could be like the supposed ashes of like the Buddha and everything. And so it's kind of like a Catholic equivalent to a reliquary, except a reliquary doesn't take up 5 stories like a Japanese pagoda.
This thing's huge. It's like 5 stories. And of course, it has those giant roofs that come out of it. It's
122 feet tall.
That's pretty big. And yeah, it almost to me looks like you stacked a bunch of mushrooms on top of each other, the way it flows out like that. So
you're kind of jumping the gun a little bit. You're kind of getting ahead of our discussion.
Sorry.
But anyways, so what's impressive, as Joe alluded to earlier, is the fact that Horyuji, or in specific the pagoda in Horyuji, is over 1,300 years old. It's been able to withstand years and years of earthquakes, I think maybe 40 at its count. And one of the oldest elements remains from about like 590 AD, which is pretty impressive. And so it raises the important questions of, well, how exactly has this thing been able to withstand earthquakes and been able to be around for so long?
Termites.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, wood rot. I mean, we're talking about a wooden structure. This isn't a marble structure like you get in Italy or something. So Well, do you have any thoughts about, like, have they talked about that, Max? Like,
Well, there are three important elements that are of the structure that have contributed at least to its inability to withstand earthquakes, and those three are the uses of wide and heavy eaves, disconnected floors, and this element called a shock-absorbing shin bashira. And we shall get to all three, but as Joe mentioned, the eaves of the building and everything, and for people who don't know the technical term for eave, if you look at the roof of your house, the eaves are pretty much what hangs out away from the wall of the house, away
Right.
on the roof. And
sometimes it's called a soffit, so yeah.
yeah, that's another term. That could be another term for it. But, well, the eaves in Horyuji are particularly large. They take up about 50% or more of the building's total width. And the main reason for these eaves is actually, one of the main reasons for these eaves is to prevent water from building up in the soil and just causing the pagoda to sink. And so it serves that really important function, because you don't want a leaning tower of Pisa situation with a
That's what I
giant wooden
started thinking
structure.
about. Yeah.
If only the leaning tower had large eaves, but it probably wouldn't have looked really pretty.
Wouldn't
Would've looked like an
helped
umbrella.
either. No, it wouldn't help.
The great umbrella of Pisa.
Well, but that's part of, because I'm guessing Japan gets a lot of rain, right, Max? So
It's like
that's part of
50%.
their-
It's
yeah.
like twice as much rain as mainland China, because they had pagodas in China, but they were made more out of stone. Does not function well with Japan.
Right.
Both rain and earthquakes. No, sir.
So it throws it away, kind of like what we do, Allan, with keeping water away from our foundation. We don't want it to erode our foundation. So they
Exactly.
were thinking about this all those years ago.
Exactly, 1,300 years ago. And what's also kind of a nice little added benefit about the eaves is the fact that they kind of provide a certain fireproof ability. Because, if it's raining, you might get it struck by lightning. Well, they have a lightning pole at the top of it. Well, but an additional safety benefit is the fact that the eaves are laden with these heavy earthenware tiles, and so that prevents it from the bottom part of it just spontaneously combusting when the rain and the lightning comes, because lightning strikes. It seems like it's pretty logical that thing could kind of
I didn't even
ignite
think
like
of
a
the
tinderbox.
lightning into this, because this thing's 5 stories tall. Yeah, it's a lot, and they get all that rain,
And
then
it's kind of in an open area also. So I happen to know the building he's talking about.
Yeah.
And of a lot of interesting things. All right, we just got through talking about the Statue of Liberty. And half of talking about the Statue of Liberty was talking about the base.
Well, sure, yeah,
Because the
it's 10-story
foundation and
base.
how
Yeah.
this thing was built and secured also has a lot to do with not only the pagoda, but I'm going to pick on Memphis.
Okay,
We are in an earthquake zone.
right.
Now, this is not a huge feature to an individual house built by modern standards. You'll withstand a certain amount of wind, a certain amount of rain, of housing. There's a reason we have building codes and building standards.
Right.
Of 100 years ago, we didn't. And if you could afford it, your house was really well built, you survived the thunderstorms and the big winds. If you weren't, maybe your house got flattened.
Right.
So, I hate to say it, but that was actually not horribly that uncommon. Now, with modern building construction and everything, in the average house in an earthquake area like Memphis, we're pretty good. Pretty much everything we have in Memphis is all right. Now, when you get into these taller structures, you get into, let's pick on something like the Clark Tower. The Clark Tower actually sways in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think all skyscrapers have
This
that,
actually
right?
makes me want to get to the second topic. In terms of what makes Horyuji been able to withstand earthquakes. It's precisely that. It's swaying in the wind ability, and the way that they did this is because it's made out of wood rather than concrete. Is they have the stories are pretty much piled on top of each other with
Yes.
loose fitting brackets. It's joinery as opposed to load bearing, and I think that's really cool. So when an earthquake happens, it literally slithers, which is really fascinating, like a snake.
And so, in other words, even way back then, they were thinking about. It sounds like the key to surviving earthquakes is flexibility, right? You don't want you don't want everything totally connected. You need,
Flexibility, but at the same time, one more thing, which actually kind of helps it from being too flexible, so to say.
Okay.
And this is an ingenious concept that the Japanese developed called the shin bashira, or the central pillar. and it doesn't have any load-bearing purpose at all, but it's this giant tree or this giant pole that extends through the center of the pagoda, and it provides just enough structure and stability to keep it from all the floors from kind of collapsing down, and so it kind of makes it slither, but it keeps it from slithering too far, so to say.
Okay, wait a minute, Max. So it's funny how these things all tie together, because you know what this is reminding me of? It's like, you know where I'm going with this, Alan. We talked about the Statue of Liberty. There's a rigid structure in the middle with the steel.
Right.
It creates a frame, but all around it, that copper is moving and flexible. It almost, Max, what you're describing, because I've seen this pagoda you're talking about, it almost reminds me of somebody with a hula hoop. Like the middle, the person is standing straight, the hula hoop's moving all around, but it's not going to go too far one way or another. It's keeping it confined in that central area.
The man in the middle is the shinbashira.
So that's rigid, and then the flooring and the roof. And you said the roof sort of form a counterbalance too, right? Like
yeah, they're kind of like a good kind of
they're so heavy.
Yeah, they kind of they're kind of a good source of inertia for like the entirety of the building. So they all kind of work in a very harmonious way, which is really nice. And like even modern structures to this day still utilize like the Tokyo Skytree, and I'm sure Alan, I want to see it.
Because isn't there like the Khalifa?
I'm actually going to give people a real world example that a lot of people here in Memphis still remember.
Right.
For a while, for about 30 years, we had the Mall of Memphis.
Right.
And the Mall of Memphis was built on this idea, this exact same construction idea, and actually had what was called earthquake plates between the floors. And I remember the very first Christmas this mall was open, and there was a lot of people. There was a lot of people in this thing.
It was the hot spot to go to.
And then everybody freaked out because if you were paying attention, you felt the second floor shimmy just a tiny little bit.
Right.
And what it was the amount of weight, the amount of people walking on that second floor caused it to activate the earthquake plate for just a moment.
Oh, boy.
And you got this little
yeah.
And you saw thousands of people dead stop and kind of look around like, are we having an earthquake?
Right.
And what you were feeling was the building actually adjusting to the weight of the number of people in the building. The building actually moved to protect itself.
I mean, that alone is interesting.
How amazing is that? So this type of construction, I mean, we're going back, 7th century?
Around 7th century.
Around 7th century, somebody had the presence of mind to kind of go, all right, if we build it too loose, it falls over.
Right.
If we build it too stiff, it breaks.
Yeah.
So what we need is something right down the middle. And this 7th century technology is present in almost every major structure here in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, everything has to move.
All these hundreds of years later.
And in skyscrapers, I think they call it a mass tune damper or dampener.
Yes.
I think, trying to remember what the specific definition of that is, because I've heard of it, but it's like, I know there's like a central structure in there, but I'm not necessarily sure like the science and the nitty gritty of how and why that works.
It is the same principle, though. It's not necessarily a rigid pole, but it is a rigid structure, generally that you can hang your elevators and stuff with. However, a lot of these buildings also have in them a counterbalance.
Right.
So that if something moves, it counters the move. And it makes you a much more stable building. So
it's funny, you're stable by being movable.
Exactly.
It's kind of interesting.
So, well, you and I have told people for years on this show, your house moves.
Yep.
Your house breathes. It shifts.
Yeah.
Temperature makes it go different directions. Max brought us an early example of somebody going, yeah, but when it really gets to shaking, we want our building to look just as good at the end of the earthquake as the beginning of the earthquake. And let's face it, Japan has a lot of earthquakes.
Yeah. Well, and Max, the other part of this, though, is this is a wooden structure. It's 1,300 years old, and, wood rots. This is perfect conditions to rot wood. So
that's exactly, if we had time, I wanted to bring this up after the break, because it actually presented certain philosophical questions about your own home, and I think it would be kind of fun to get into how they're able to preserve the Japanese pagoda and everything. But I shan't spoil anything since we're coming up on time.
You shan't? What are you living in the 1300s? Okay. Anyway, Max was born in the wrong era. I've said this before, but this is interesting because wood. I don't know. You wouldn't think a wooden structure would make it this long.
We're going to start talking about teak.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. And I have a certain thing for Japanese woodworkers. They really have I like their sensibilities. We're going to unpack that when we come back, as well as some other great things. Alan's got a shout-out to efficiency as well. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Okay, you know what? Shut up.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
Can't really argue with that. Blunt and to the point. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com. And our buddy Max over there behind the glass.
He remembered me this time.
You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. And I would remind you, you can call or text us any day of the week, which we actually, don't mind. You can leave us messages. You may have comments about our last show. You may have ideas for a great topic to cover in Great Moments in Building History. If there's some structure or there's some moment in history that you think deserves a spotlight, leave us a message, and you can even send pictures too at the text line. So
did they say Atlantis? Great moments in building history?
That
question
would be
mark.
Cool. Yeah. In a minute, Max, we're gonna you brought us this week's Great Moments in Building History, the Horyu, how do you say it? The Horyuji Pagoda in Japan, which is the oldest wooden structure. We might get a little philosophical with that. Before we do, you know who's really philosophical? You know who is a highly he likes those in-depth discussions and highly thought-provoking
a dynamic individual.
Jay Hill from Big M Roofing and Remodeling. Now, he'd probably appreciate the roofing systems they have on this pagoda.
Yes.
It's a lot different than the systems he installs, but that's Jay's game. He is a master elite GAF installer. He's 5 stars with Good Housekeeping and the Better Business Bureau. The craftsmanship is undeniable. Every bit of work that they do, they stand behind it. They have lifetime transferable warranties with the roofing systems they install, including with these. One of the great things about it is these are just more energy efficient as well.
Oh, yes, they are.
We've all noticed it, Allan. I've said it since I got my new roof. Our utility bill has gone down at least, $50 a month, which that's nothing to sneeze at.
Ridge vents and good roofing makes a huge difference.
Yeah, our house is now running cooler and everything. But the great thing too with Jay is his experience as a former insurance agent, because that's the thing, especially these days. If you have any roofing issues that may be covered by your homeowner's insurance, it's still a tricky process to navigate. And I dare say he's more equipped to deal with it than really any roofer I know. And so he stays up on the latest protocols. He knows everybody in the business. So when if you call with a particular insurance company, he's like, oh yeah, I know that Bob is the adjuster for that or whatever. Yep. He's got him on speed dial. And that's a big deal when you have those kind of options and solutions available to you, because you can't play games with your roof. The roof is everything. No.
And I have to say, after this week of rain, I have truly appreciated my Big M roofing roof.
Oh yeah, and I dare say people probably walked around their house and said, I didn't see that stain before, and there's who knows what kind of new leaks are developing. So Jay is going to be busy this week, I'm sure, but you can call Jay directly. That we recommend that anyway. If you're ever bored and you just want to talk to somebody funny and entertaining, call him. He gives out his number. It's 901-484-5645, or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, hey, Max, we want to wrap up our discussion with your great moments in building history, because also we got to get to your, you've got a pretty interesting topic, Allan, a shout out to efficiency.
Indeed.
But let's continue this. So the pagoda, it's it brings up a lot of topics. This thing is a wooden structure that's 1,300 years old.
So how has the wood been able to be preserved? Well, it's a little bit of a disappointing answer for someone who's a purist because it's, there might be elements, there might be certain parts of the wood that are well preserved and are the originals. However, if part of the wood gets rotten or needs to be restored, you do so by replacing the parts individually. So like there may be a piece of wood that needs to be replaced. One person put it well. It's like if there are boards that need to be replaced, you don't replace it with like a tree. You replace it with a forest. You want it to be replaced with the wood that would have been used in the area at that time. And so it does it's not some of the parts aren't the original wood, so to say, but it does kind of bring up an important question. Is it still the original structure, even though the individual boards might have been replaced with time? And there's actually a very interesting philosophical mind puzzle that this brings up, which is called the Ship of Theseus.
Ah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Theseus, Allan, not the other word.
Not that thing. And so the Ship of Theseus, for people who don't know, is an ancient mind puzzle developed by the philosophers Heraclitus and Plato. Mm-hmm. And it has to do with a mythical ship of Theseus. And Theseus was the mythical founder king of Athens, Greece. And so they were talking about how, there's this lovely ship adorned in the harbor of Athens. And over time, it's been able to be preserved by individually replacing the boards and planks and everything. But does it raise the question, does it still the Ship of Theseus? And some people would argue, yes, because there's still the soul or the essence of the Ship of Theseus there, and others maybe not so. Or another person said, what if you took all the individual planks of the old wood and made a new ship out of it? Would that be the Ship of Theseus? And so this kind of makes me think about the individual structures in your home. Is it still your home? Because you could argue yes, because there's still the soul or the form of the home in there.
Well,
I'm going to say mortgage, deed, and title.
Okay, that's
the soul of the home.
Hey, Max, before we just dismiss it, though, I want to say there are still some pieces of wood in this structure that are the original. So,
I mean, that Shin Bashira, they said that the central pillar, I believe they said, fell around the year 590 something.
Right. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to just pretend that this is all replacement wood, but like if the handrail on the side rots or something. However, you do, so it is still well preserved. The Japanese woodworkers, they can stand behind their work. They did a great job. But that is true, Allan. Getting philosophical, what if you gut your home, if you gut your kitchen and whatever, is it still your kitchen? I mean,
deed and title says it is.
It's sort of one of these. There's probably not really an answer for it. It's just it, but
because the philosophers have been kind of toying with that question for a while. Plato, one of his solutions, he talked about this notion called forms, which it's kind of like the number 2. You don't see the number 2 walking around in nature, but it exists in our mind as a concept of understanding. And so you could say that the form of the Horyuji Pagoda still exists as a concept of our understanding. And so even if it's individually replaced, it's still there. It's still the form of that pagoda is still there. Well,
he's hurting my brain, but
actually, I'll one up him on that one because there was also the additional argument of form versus function. And so long as the structure changes neither its form nor function, the rest is merely the generation and evolution of the structure.
Let me ask you this. Let me throw this at you clowns. What about this? So Max, you take a beam out of this pagoda and you reform it and you make a fireplace mantle at your house. Well, is it part of the pagoda or is it a fireplace mantle?
That entirely depends on how much money you think you're going to get on eBay for it.
Well, these are the kind of thought-provoking and, ideas that we float out here on Tool Talk Radio. But I think there is a translation because your house, is it the spirit of your home? Is it the, whatever, especially if you remodel the entire thing?
Well, it depends on, I'm going to actually add a little bit to that. It depends on your actual functionality of you grew up in this home. So let's just say you've known Dominic a day or two of let's say we're gonna pick on your children.
Yeah.
You got a child named Dominic, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
Dominic
Jeremy,
grew up
and
in
Michaela and
all right.
Alana.
Well, but
Yeah.
Dominic grew up in your house.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
picking on Dominic because just I happen to know him.
He's the most annoying. Yeah.
Well, it happens. But he,
course
grew
he
up in-
is.
he grew up in your house.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
all right. Well, Mom and Dad, it's time for y'all to move on to the retirement village.
Right.
So your son Dominic's going to take over your house.
Yeah.
All right.
Bad
well,
idea.
Your house is, let's just say, morbidly dated.
Yeah. Don't give me those accusing stares, Alan.
So your house is morbidly dated in the
Yeah.
fact that, well, it's built in a certain era. It was designed a certain way.
Right.
Now, your son Dominic wants to live a different lifestyle.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I
but
see
he
where
has
you're
your
going with it.
house.
Right.
So he is going to get the best of both worlds because he gets the house he grew up in and he gets what the new renovation would bring to it.
Mm-hmm.
And thus he gets an open concept where you had a kitchen, living room, and dining room.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the evolution of a structure. Structures are designed, or at least now in our modern world, of we can change things, we can move things around, and yet keep the original structure.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
I think it's part of just the evolution of the building.
It's the spirit of things, and it just shows that things are more about our perceptions than maybe they are about.
I'll get with Dominic later. We'll redesign your house.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, Alan, we don't want to run out of time. It's time to shift gears. That was good, Max. I think, and I'll be curious to see what Alan brings because we decided we're all going to take turns chipping in and contributing to our great moments in building history. I'm not going to lie, Alan. It is now my favorite segment of the show. So sorry.
Well, it applies to everything we love to talk about.
It gets into
the lighting,
interesting
it's the
concepts.
structure, it's the bases,
It's the
everything
philosophy.
we get into.
It gets
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, philosophical. But Alan, this is interesting, and it kills me to give the the New England Patriots credit for anything. But this is something I gotta give them hats off. But this is about one of the most efficient building projects I've ever heard of. So tell us what's going on, man.
Okay,
So-
well, in any project, in any design, we have what we lovingly love to call the Fudge Factor, a.k.a.
never heard that one, but okay.
Well, there's going to be changes. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. There's going to be a supply delay. We can put this off an extra month. So when the owners of the New England Patriots decided they needed a new office building, they had this perfect piece of ground. Big problem
Yeah.
is right next to the main walking path.
I mean,
through
it's
the
right
entire
there at the
structure.
stadium.
It's right there. And they went, we are not having our fans walk through a construction site.
Yeah.
So we're going to do this in the
kidding.
off season.
Okay.
So we're looking at about a 24 to 36 month building cycle. You now have 6 months.
How big is this building?
120,000 square feet.
I'm not going to pretend I know much about their stadium or anything, Alan, but I'm just wondering, okay, it's probably in an urban area too, which complicates it. It's not like building out in a big open, whatever.
It's not like we can just park trucks everywhere and just have stuff piled up and waiting.
It's a logistical nightmare.
It is, at a best of times, it's going to be a logistical challenge.
Right. Okay.
So here they are. They're sitting here looking at this and they go, wow, this is a great approach, but there's no way this is going to work. And
Because you could build part of it, then you take the season off.
Yeah,
You could
then
do,
you
but
build
maybe
part.
they don't want a half finish. It's still a construction
it's
site.
still a construction site.
Yeah.
So SGA and the Kraft Group, which are the two companies that got involved in this, logistically design all the way through construction, said, well, let's take the principles of project management and let's see if we can squeeze the air out of this project. Because how much...
Squeeze the downtime.
The 24 months, how much of that 24 months is actually boots on the ground, hammers in the air?
Right.
And if
okay.
we can get rid of the debt, if we get rid of all the dead time, how could we do this? And it wound up being kind of the old joke of how to eat an elephant.
Okay.
So basically they designed the idea of the way the different contractors, vendors, and basically building teams were going to approach this.
Right.
So once they got going, they had a whole lot of everybody has a phase 1 project, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and they set it up like dominoes.
Yeah.
So honestly, it was down to like The moment you got done, so you're supposed to frame this room in. So Joe comes in, does it, gets his room framed in, and Allan's
20 minutes later, you're walking with the
Allan's
sheetrock.
supposed to come in and sheetrock it.
Right. Okay.
So,
yeah.
I mean, honestly, it was like you pressed a button and went, call the sheetrock drop-in crew now.
Right.
And so everybody had a really short window of time to motivate. In other words, AKA, get your supplies, get your people, get your tech, get it in place now. The cool thing is it worked and they pulled it off.
Yeah, because to me, the big, Allan, I've been on construction sites for new homes, and just full disclosure, it's one of the reasons I do the work I do, because I learned pretty early on. I kind of just like working for myself.
Right.
I've been on a job, Allan, because what you're saying, I might have been doing the framing. Okay, well, I was all prepared. I brought my lumber, I brought my whole thing in, and I show up, and there is a plumber and an electrician right in the space I'm supposed to be working in today.
Yes.
Or they just cut a big hole in the wall that I just finished 2 days ago.
Yes.
And and we're on top of each other. We're in each other's way. Nobody was telling me this was happening. So you're coordinating multiple trades. It's a massive thing. And they pulled this off in 6 months. This is unheard of.
They wrapped and packed this. So
I just wonder what the job site was like, though. I mean, I'm picturing almost like a conductor or an air traffic controller. Like, okay, plumbers over there, because they could have multiple trades going on at once. Obviously, at different phases of the building.
Tradespeople involved in this,
right?
So basically, at the very beginning of it, they had a meeting and got everybody together and went, "Look,
we're not playing games here.
This is how it's going to go."
Right.
So if you got a problem, let's replace you now, because this is going to be a different idea.
Right.
You can't just walk in and own the spot, because the minute you're done, you got to go, because, phase B is standing right behind you 20 minutes later, ready to step in. And what happened about halfway through this construction is nobody noticed. It was just the way things are supposed to be.
And it created a certain rhythm on the job site.
It's got its feet under it. Like I said, it got a rhythm, and they rolled this baby in and actually got it done.
Allan, it's just making me think that a lot of building projects, it's not just about the skill of the craftspeople that are building it. It's the attitude, and there's reasons why some companies take 3 years to build your house when another company could build it in a year or something like that. And it's probably just goes to a lot of organizational skills and a lot of planning, and just not jumping. I'm guessing this would have taken a while to plan out. They probably planned it out for a year or two.
They spent a couple of years getting the planning done.
But
when it came time, when they fired that starter's gun, no more talk.
Okay.
We're on go.
I'm just wondering, but you got to get it inspected. I wonder what the quality of the craftsmanship is like. I mean,
This was very high end.
Okay.
This was very high end. This is the administration building for a major league team. They're not going to come in and just throw stuff against the wall.
Okay.
This was very well done. It kind of reminded me of the joke of, if you really want to get something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah.
Because they really wanted to get this done. And I guess the major lesson, the reason I wanted to bring this up is for anybody getting into the fall season here and you're contemplating the new project, the new fire pit, the new patio, because we just had 2 horrible months of nothing.
Yeah.
Because I will freely
Nobody
admit,
wanted to work when it's 112
I got
degrees
behind
up.
on my own projects.
Right, yeah.
And now that the heat is kind of broken, we had a little rain this week. I'm really looking forward to this afternoon getting out there and getting caught up on a few things. And I'm going to say, eat the elephant one bite at a time, but think it through first.
Mm-hmm.
You sit down for a minute, play with a piece of paper, kind of get yourself lined up with, how do I want to get this done? In what order do I want to get this done? And then maybe go shopping and not buy anything, and make sure the stuff you need to get it done is available.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. You're just making me think of how much of the process is really a lot of planning. And I got to be honest, Allan, I do a lot of carpentry instinctually, if that makes sense. Like I don't really have the need to draw up a bunch of blueprints or whatever. If somebody calls and asks me to build something, a lot of it I just do it.
Well, you have a blueprint in your head.
Right. But I don't have to coordinate with the only people I'm coordinating with are like roofers that are going to put something on, a couple of tradespeople. But man, it's just it's a very dynamic situation. It's just making me think. And the fact that they did it in 6 months and the building standing, and I don't know, maybe like you said, you got to have a tight deadline. And really what you got to do is you got to get people of the same, you got to get everybody pulling in the same direction, basically. And with that can-do attitude, Now, this wouldn't have surprised me if you told me a story like this happened during the Industrial Revolution, because that's people's attitude all day. That's what they were doing back then.
How fast, big, and bad can we get this done?
Yeah.
So this is, it's one of these heartwarming tales of, yes, you can get all these different people together. Yeah, you can get a project going one direction. And yes, you can finish on time and on budget.
Right. Well, did they finish on budget or under budget? I mean, 6 months.
Right at about. They came in close enough. We're gonna call the ball at on time and on budget.
I mean, that's pretty good. Because on
awesome.
Schedule, on budget is not a word you hear a lot these days.
So, no.
So
there was a lot. There was a lot of pre-planning to this, but I'm adapting it to the average everyday homeowner, people like me and you.
Yeah.
In the simple fact that project may seem big and daunting, but break it down to bite-sized pieces. Let's get it down to what is step one.
Right.
We want to put in that patio. Well, let's make sure this is laid out right. Let's get the paint can and let's go paint the grass and make sure this is the size area you want. This is how you want it done.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is get the changes in your head done before you stick a shovel in the dirt.
Well, Allan, you're making me want to go look at this building, because I read about it. I haven't done much research on it. And, of course, like I said, it's the Patriots. I mean,
you'll get over it.
Yeah, and all of our New England listeners, you can send that hate mail to or those hate texts. Yeah, but hey, Allan, we don't want to get out of here before we ask what's to shift gears totally. What is going on with Dark Oak Media this week? Because
Dark Oak Media is one word this week and one word only, and that would be Scott J. Carroll.
Okay, is he back in action? Because I mean, he's
CC Entertainment Spotlight is Scott Luce at something called the Tupelo Con, and then you're gonna love this one, Scott Luce at the Memphis Italian Festival.
Well, he's a little behind schedule. Is he finally getting that edited or something?
All of that's finally edited, done, and out of post-production. So our misadventures from earlier in the summer are all starting to hit the airwaves.
Okay, cool. So go to darkoakmedia.com. And I want to mention before we get out of here, Allan, that if you need a deck or a pergola or a pagoda, I don't know if I'm ready to build a 5-story pagoda.
Dude, I am so down with helping you build a pagoda.
That I can guarantee will be around 1,300 years from now. I don't stand, I'm not that extreme, Allan, but I promise you these things will last generations, the stuff I built.
You call me, I will come help.
Okay. You can get in touch with me directly. Any outside wood project, you can call me directly at 901-921-7105. Well, Allan, it's funny, I'm looking at our notes here. We got to about half of the things we had listed, which is sort of typical for Tool Talk Radio.
Not bad for today.
Yeah, not bad, but a lot of interesting discussions. I'm really man, it's just it's and the future of home improvement is interesting, man. We're never going to run out of things to talk about. We are going to run out of time, though, Allan. I hear the music. So another episode of Tool Talk Radio is in the can. So on behalf of my buddy Allan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.